Hi, and welcome back to It's Not Rocket Science 5 Questions Over Coffee. I have my coffee here with me. I've probably had too much of that so far this morning, so I'm likely to be very well hopped up. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Oli Cohen. Oli is a cinematographer and photographer, but more importantly, today he's here to talk to us about his founding of a company called Life Stories, or a project called Life Stories. Life Stories is a way that people can tell their story and capture it. And I think this is a fascinating idea. I think it's something that more people should know about. Hence, Oli is here with us today. So, Oli, welcome to It's Not Rocket Science 5 Questions Over Coffee.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
So, you've had a fascinating story yourself, but what is it? What is it you're trying to do? How is it you're trying to reach out and help people with this idea of life stories and the content that comes with that?
So, well, Life Stories is about turning people's lives into documentaries. There's the basic thinking that everyone's got an interesting story to tell. It isn't fame that makes somebody worthy
Mm.
of a documentary. And people all have valuable stories that are significant to their loved ones. Yet there seems to be a disconnect, or certainly there's a lack of opportunity for people to have their lives turned into documentaries. And we live in this digital age, and video is a very accessible medium.
Yeah.
So the idea is we turn people's lives into documentaries, which is a two-camera interview intercut with photographs, archive footage, and music.
I think it's a truly brilliant idea. I mean, a lot of people have sort of done this for themselves, but I mean, I guess the problem that we would all say is, one, it's very difficult to interview yourself, but also um, none of us are particularly good at the editing something to make it look right. Have you seen people do this? And frankly, it doesn't quite tell the story in the way that you go, I just know I could do a better job.
I don't know if people trying to do it themselves. What I am aware of is people getting their lives turned into books, and there's quite a few operators in the sort of legacy space, and that's great. But my thinking was that so much of the emotional nuance gets lost when words get put
Mm,
onto the script.
mm.
And when you hear somebody speaking, it's a lot more powerful. There's so much more emotional information there that it affects you as a listener. And but we're not just recording, we're not just doing podcasts at Life Stories. We're creating films, and so much of communication is non-verbal. It's in the body language, it's in facial expressions, it's in the little twinkle in people's eyes. And I think that through film, there's a lot more potential to capture the essence of somebody compared to just turning their life into a book. And I feel there's not, when I set the company up, there didn't seem to be many people doing it, and it was something that I wish that I had done myself,
Mm.
not for me, but for my sister. That's the origin story of why I set it up. My sister unfortunately passed away not that long ago, and at the time I was living in LA, and I rushed. I got, immediately within 24 hours when I heard the news, I got some documentary film equipment together and got on a plane back to the UK to try to capture her life on film, thinking mainly that this would benefit my nephew, her son, who was only 7 years old at the time, because I thought he's never going to be able to see his mother from an adult perspective. So I thought this is something that I can do to add value to this awful situation. I just thought it'd be a wonderful thing to be able to get my sister's life on film documented. But I wasn't able to do it because of the pandemic. I wasn't able to visit her in hospital, and it was a missed opportunity. And it was really, really sad. And I just thought this is something that I'd like to be able to offer to other people. That was the beginnings of the idea.
I'm sorry to hear about that story, but it's a
Thank you.
wonderful illustration of the fact that you don't leave these things until it's too late, do you? You do it now because none of us
Yeah,
can really count on tomorrow or next week. We have matters outside of our control.
exactly. Yeah. There's there's that idea of there's that concept of you don't know what you've got until it's gone.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and it's easy to sort of think it's easy to not want to think about it at all, or to put it off. Um, yeah, but
Well,
I,
great that there are people like
yeah.
you, Ollie, at the moment trying to address this problem. Do you have
Thanks.
a valuable a piece of advice or offer that you have that you can bring to the audience at the moment?
Hmm. Well, on the Life Stories website, which is lifestories.media, on the homepage, if you scroll down, there's this thing we're doing called Life Stories Spotlight, and with that, with that spotlight feature, we're encouraging everybody to think about who in your life do you feel has a story that, or just a life story that you would like to document. And then this could be a loved one, but it could be anybody somebody who you have some respect for because of something they're doing. It might be extraordinary, but it might just be not just. It might be an everyday hero, and an unsung hero, if you like. So what we're encouraging people to do is to have a think who this person could be, get in touch with us, and then we will select a particular story that we think is worthwhile documenting, and we will cover all of the costs and the production ourselves. So it's something we encourage people to think about: who would you like to nominate?
Now, if you didn't catch that website, the link will be in our vault where we put all of the content of these podcasts. So if you go to www.systemise, systemise.me/free hyphen stuff, you will see a link to Ollie's website and
Thank you.
details of that in that vault, and you will be able to access that from there. Ollie, you've got a fascinating history. You've been a cinematographer and photographer, as we've said, with some really impressive stuff being shown across the world. You've told us the story of how you sort of got here. Are there other stories that you've captured as part of this project, which have made you realise just how valuable it is to have this content available for documenting lives, even if it's not lives that are past, but lives that are ongoing?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. There are a lot of surprising things that happen when you make a film about someone's life, because they can sometimes unlock. I mean, I don't want it to be like therapy sessions, but they can sometimes unlock emotions
Yes.
that people have kind of not wanted to talk about. Because in with family stories, this is something that's occurred to me when a child asked an adult a question about that adult's life. Children are quite inquisitive. The adult gives them a very child-friendly, watered-down version of what actually happened, and then those stories sort of get a bit cemented and stuck. But then when you go to make a life story film about somebody and you ask them certain questions, or particular questions about what it was like for them growing up at that place at that time and on these situations, sometimes um, things can they can show people can show a vulnerability that they haven't shown to their children before. So the generation below get to see their parents or their grandparents with a new perspective, which can help bridge the generational divide, which I find
Mm,
I find that such a powerful thing.
mm.
Helping, because ultimately life stories is about, it's connecting people through stories to help people feel more connected. with each other, and particularly with their loved ones. But as well as that, people who are answering the questions, they often have certain realizations themselves.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
because we all have this need to be appreciated, to be listened to be heard, to be seen, to be appreciated. So there's something in the process of doing that, that you can tell that people really enjoy it. They really
Yeah.
benefit from doing it, and they get to sometimes look at their own lives with a slightly different perspective, and kind of think, actually, I've done all right. Because I think a lot of us are really critical of ourselves, but when you look back and think, you know what, I did do okay. I've got through this and I've done pretty well, and I don't have loads of regrets. A lot of people say they don't regret the decisions they made, which I often find an interesting, bit of a confusing thing to me. But the process gives people new perspective on themselves.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Ollie, I'm very aware that I've asked you questions that I'm sure you think at the moment are sort of fairly softball questions that really haven't sort of got to the heart of the matter. But there must be one question that you think, well, he's forgotten to really sort of nail the killer question. So as I'm thinking about this, I'm going to suggest that you try and ask me what is the killer question I should have asked you, and then obviously you will have to answer it for us because you already know the answer.
Well, there's the questions about the sort of the philosophy behind life stories. So you could ask me that, and I can just answer that if you like. There's a few things that stick out. There's the line from Joan Didion, who she said, we tell ourselves stories in order to live, and I think that's a line. So stories help us make sense of the world, and they encourage empathy with each other. So that's really very much aligned with the thinking behind life stories. And similarly, I'm a big fan of Esther Perel, and one of her sound bites is that the quality of our relationships determine the quality of our lives. So with life stories, we obviously it's about preserving memories, but ultimately it's more about deepening our relationships with people. So yeah, that and stuff we've already talked about just the impermanence of things. These are the key sort of philosophies or the thinking behind life stories.
Brilliant. Oliver, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us. I'm just going to make a short appeal after hearing, frankly, about the fact that relationships are so critical. Stories are so critical to our well-being. If you would like to hear more about things like this, where we speak to some really groundbreaking thinkers and some people doing some very different stuff, and I love meeting these people. You should want to meet them as well. You should want to get onto the newsletter list. So come to www.systemise, that's systemise.me/subscribe. Just fill in a short form. It just asks you for your email address and your first name, just so that I can send you something a little bit more personalized than hey. And you will get an email from me telling you about some of the really groundbreaking thinkers coming up with such brilliant ideas in the next week or so on this live stream. Oliver, I just want to thank you for spending a few minutes with us today talking about what I think is a really, we don't think enough about the fact that, as somebody who is ordinary, I have got stories, I have got things that people might be interested in hearing, and those stories bring a better connection, which inevitably is a healthier life altogether. So thank you for just bringing that to us, and I hope that people get onto the vault and have a look at that that story that you told us, the where you can go and actually capture some of those really brilliant brilliant stories from other people. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. Great to talk to you.